At the end of the day, warfare is always about choosing sides. But you know, if you don't, you get to fight everyone.
We're learning about a game called Rising Generals from InnoGames that Christoph is the producer on and Bruce is the special advisor on. And this kind of a free-to-play strategy space has sort of just blown up over the last few years. Can you tell us a little bit about what Rising Generals is doing differently? Because it is a very competitive space.
It is, yes it is. What we do differently at Rising Generals is like something we also didn't do at InnoGames before. You know, we have a couple of games out there, and for Rising Generals we really wanted to leverage that the player is able to play it on mobile and that the play sessions have a different length, and therefore we put some immediacy in the game. So when you log into Rising Generals you can get everything directly, you produce components or units and you don't have to wait for that, you go in cooldown afterwards. So this way you can log in and you can do everything, all the preparations for the battle and start the battle directly as a rewarding end for your play session.
Sort of trying to make it a little bit less frustrating perhaps for the player to because you have to have friction, of course that's part of the whole thing, but not making it frustrating.
Right. Especially players who are used to play games on mobile, they want a good usability and they want a good feel for the game, and there's a lot of competition. It's not only that our classic competitors, it's even more. People are playing a lot of games there which are really nicely done, and it's easy to get in there. So we also tried to, as we have the game on iOS, Android and the browser, to make it like a better feel and a better user experience there.
All right. So of course you're one of the most experienced in the strategy genre. What does your expertise bring to this project, and what kind of things have you sort of looking at this from perhaps another perspective? What have you brought to the project?
This is a different kind of game than I've ever worked on or been involved with before. I haven't played many browser games, so but when I looked at it, the design was essentially laid out already. So I played it I came down as a player. And I brought up issues where I thought the game was slow for me, or I wasn't getting enough information. I think I had a lot of influence, or at least I suggested a lot of changes in the interface. I wanted more information. I wanted it to be a smoother experience. I wanted the game to give me information quickly that I could use and return fast. And I embraced the whole idea of their immediacy, the idea that I could log in and play a game for 10, 15 minutes, and then it would cool down while I could go off and relax and do something else, and come back and be ready to go again quickly. That's new. I hadn't seen that before.
I tend to think of your games as games that you're locked in for many hours.
Yeah, I was used to a much longer experience as a player. Well, actually, we tried to make those games get shorter and shorter as the years went by. We were competing, and I think eventually the typical PC strategy game has gone away because they couldn't compete with the short play sessions of maybe
MOBAs and that.
Yeah, other things, right. So I think what these fellows are doing, InnoGames with the Rising Generals game, is just trying to get back some of that short session play, but still be an engaging game you want to keep coming back to over and over again. So you can get your 10, 15-minute fix, you play in, you start all your actions, so your attacks, your building, then you go away and come back a little bit, and it's sort of ready to go again.
That's one of the things that I really liked about this game that I saw. It's just the scope of the map, the scope of the meta game, because I can imagine that that's really what's going to drive it. But there's one concern I got is, of course, if players are able to progress faster using micropayments, how do you sort of prevent players from being overrun, for instance? That's a general concern.
That's a fair question, right? So at InnoGames we for sure work with microtransactions, but it's a hardcore PvP game, and if we wouldn't make it fair, we would fail from the beginning. So we put a lot of work in balancing this. For example, the main resources you use in the game, like fuel and components, you can't speed up their production. It's always limited to how long the cooldowns are running.
Is that something that I can imagine that that whole sort of layer of the game of the microtransactions? That's something that sort of how do you what do you take from that, and how do you see it compared to what you worked on?
Well, it's new because in the past all we had to do was make a good game, and we were finished. Now you have to make a good game, and then you have to incent people to make people happy about spending a little bit of money, because the games are free. and there's a good game there that's free to play. But in order to survive as a company, you have to give them something else. You have to be another layer of design that we never had to deal with before. How do you encourage people, make them happy about paying a little bit of money to make their experience more enjoyable? So there's a new whole part of design that I never was exposed to before.
I think it's almost like it's back to the root of the coin-op games, where you had to incentivize the player to put in another coin to play. It's almost a little bit like that, because free-to-play has sort of, I mean, that wasn't free, but it is sort of back to something that has been around for a long time as well.
Yeah, for us it's like most of the guys who are playing our game, like more than 90% are not paying anything. So we think that we make quite a good job there to give them the chance to reach everything in the game, also so without paying anything in the microtransaction system. For example, all the items you have in the game you can earn in quests, and we also go for daily login bonuses quite soon. So you will have a chance to compete with the others this way on a decent level. I think you take much more out of getting in a battle group with other players than just trying to get your success with spending stuff. When you have your friends playing with you or other people you meet in the game, you are really your chances to get higher ranks on the leaderboard are increasing heavily.
So it's more of a social experience then, perhaps. All right, so I think we're running out of time. I'm not sure, but I'd like to we haven't touched on the setting and what it is, because just looking at the banner behind us here, the art style is kind of special. It's a war game, of course, but it's a little bit lighthearted.
So what we did here, the idea behind that, and the thing we put up, it's like a cartoony 80s Cold War setting, and we had a lot of fun doing this. For InnoGames, it's the first game in such a setting, so most of the time we did games with a historical setting, and now this is new, and we all like it a lot. Yeah.
And what do you think of it?
Well, I like the idea of a story. I think that I thought when I came involved, the game was there, the basics, but there wasn't a lot of story. So I had to get filled in on what is going on here. I mean, I want to know who am I and why am I here and what am I playing for. So they had that material. It just took a while for it to get in the game. So I think it's better now when I actually know why I'm there.
All right.
It's a science fiction setting. There's we've all ganged together to crush this evil guy. And then at the moment he collapses, am I giving away anything? I'm not giving away anything. And when he collapses, the world breaks into chaos, and it's every man for himself, or every man, every woman for himself. And so I was part of this great coalition. Now I'm surrounded by people I thought were my friends. Now they're my enemies, and that's the situation.
Sounds like every day for me. So what's the roll-up with Rising Generals? What's the plan ahead?
So we are going for a release this summer. The guys at home are still working really hard on getting everything finished right now, and there will be a closed beta quite soon.
Looking forward to being just like Bruce, being able to play it and maybe have my input and maybe expand my empires in there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Play wherever you are on Android, iOS, and in your browser at risinggenerals.com.